Hello, sixth graders. So I have some both sad and happy news. So the sad news is I had to get rid of the gerbils, but they are in a good, happy home with people that love them and will love on them like crazy. And it was mainly because I was having massive allergic reactions to them, and it was getting to the point where I could not hold them. So we lost Teddy and Rahab, but the good news is I got replacement pets for you all. They are three dwarf hamsters. You're going to be introduced to them one at a time. So today is one of the babies. His name is Vlad, and yeah, as you can see, he's kind of tiny. I don't know how to make. There we go. There we go. Yeah, but anyway, so he is absolutely sweet. You'll get to meet his mother and his sister. One of them for tomorrow's reading, but today you all get to kind of sit and watch Vlad. They are day animals, and since I'm reading this at night, you're probably just going to notice him kind of just laying in the corner because he's tired, and he is nibbling at my shirt right now. But anywho, so they're really tiny little creatures. They are super sweet, super adorable, and they're so fuzzy. They're very soft. But anyway, as I said, they're during the day, and they're not too active during night. They love to burrow, but the little container that I have for him, I do not have enough in there for him to burrow. So you all get to actually see a little bit more of him. And I have my dog and my cat trying to get closer to the poor little hamster. So we're going to work on that. But anyway, so I'm going to put him in his little container so you all can watch him while I read to you. Anyway, so let me shoo my other animals away. Go on. Go. Shoo. Shoo. As you can see, you'll probably be able to see my cat. Anyway, where we left off in Anne Frank is where she is trying to figure out how Peter views her and how he views their relationship. She's not too sure if he likes her in a romantical way or if it's just as friends. So she's trying to figure that out. She thinks that her mother and Mrs. Van Dan are jealous of her and Peter, and she's just trying to figure everything out. There was a bombing, and then she was talking about how they just bomb just to celebrate things. So we're going to start on Monday, the 3rd of April. So give me just 1 second because I haven't had a drink yet. So you can watch Vlad for a little while. Monday, 3rd April, 1944. Dear Kitty, contrary to my usual custom, I will for once write more fully about food because it has become a very difficult and important matter, not only here in the Secret Annex, but in the whole of Holland, all Europe, and even beyond. In the 21 months that we've spent here, we have been through a good many food cycles. You'll understand what that means in a minute. When I talk of food cycles, I mean periods in which one has nothing else to eat but one particular dish or kind of vegetable. We had nothing but endive for a long time, day in, day out, endive with sand, endive without sand, stew with endive, boiled with sand, boiled or on casserole. Then it was spinach, and after that followed kohlrabi, salsify, cucumbers, tomatoes, sauerkraut, etc., etc. For instance, it's really disagreeable to eat lots of sauerkraut for lunch and supper every day, but you do it if you're hungry. However, we have the most delightful period of all now because we don't get any fresh vegetables at all. Our weekly menu for supper consists of kidney beans, pea soup, potatoes with dumplings, potato chalet, and, by the grace of God, occasionally turnip tops or rotten carrots, and then the kidney beans once again. We eat potatoes at every meal, beginning with breakfast because of the bread shortage. We make our soup from kidney or the bread shortage. We make our soup from kidney or haricot, beans, potatoes, julienne, soup in packets, French beans in packets, kidney beans in packets. Everything contains beans, not to mention the bread. And I'm so sorry for my cat right now. In the evening, we always have potatoes with gravy, substitute, and thank goodness we've still got it, beetroot salad. I must still tell you about the dumplings, which we make out of government flour, water, and yeast. They are so sticky and tough, they lie like stones in one's stomach. Oh well. The great attraction each week is a slice of liver sausage and jam on dry bread. But we're still alive, and quite often we even enjoy our poor meals. Yours, Anne. Tuesday, 4th April, 1944. Dear Kitty, for a long time, I haven't had any idea of what I was working for anymore. The end of the war is terribly far away, so unreal, like a fairy tale. Like a fairy tale. If the war isn't over by September, I shan't go to school anymore because I don't want to be 2 years behind. Peter filled my days with nothing but Peter, dreams and thoughts until Saturday, when I felt so utterly miserable. Oh, it was terrible. I was holding back my tears all the while I was with Peter, then laughed with with Van Dan over a lemon punch, was cheerful and excited. But the moment I was alone, I knew that I would have to cry my heart out. So clad in my nightdress, I let myself go and slipped down onto the floor. First, I said my long prayer very earnestly. Then I cried with my head on my arms, my knees bent up on the bare floor, completely folded up. One large sob brought me back to earth again, and I quailed my tears because I didn't want them to hear anything in the next room. Then I began trying to talk some courage into myself. I could only say, I must. Completely still from the unnatural position, I fell against the side of the bed and fought on, until I climbed into bed again just before 10:30. Was over. And now it's all over. I must work so as not to be a fool, to get on, to become a journalist, because that's what I want. I know that I can write. A couple of my stories are good. My descriptions of the secret annex are humorous. There's a lot in my diary that speaks, but whether I have real talent remains to be seen. Eva's Dream is my best fairy tale, and the queer thing about it is that I don't know where it comes from. Quite a lot of Caddy's Life is good too, but on the whole, it's nothing. I am the best and sharpest critic of my own work. I know myself what is and what is not well written. Anyone who doesn't write doesn't know how wonderful it is. I used to bemoan the fact that I couldn't draw at all, but now I am more than happy that I can at least write. And if I haven't any talent for writing, books or newspaper articles, well, then I can always write for myself. I want to get on. I can't imagine that I would have to lead the same sort of life as Mummy and Mrs. Van Dam, and all the women who do their work and are then forgotten. I must have something besides a husband and children, something that I can devote myself to. I want to go on living even after my death. And therefore, I am grateful to God for giving me this gift, this possibility of developing myself and of writing, of expressing all that is in me. I can shake off everything. If I write, my sorrows disappear, my courage is reborn. But, and that is the greatest question, will I ever be able to write anything great? Will I ever become a journalist or a writer? I hope so. Oh, I hope so very much. where I can recapture everything when I write my thoughts, my ideals, and my fantasies. I haven't done anything more to Caddy's life. For ages in my mind, I know exactly how to go on, but somehow it doesn't flow from my pen. Perhaps I never shall finish it. It may land up in the wastebasket or the fire. That's a horrible idea, but then I think to myself, at the age of 14 and with so little experience, how can you write about philosophy? So I go on again with fresh courage. I think I shall succeed because I want to write. Yours, Anne. Thursday, 6th April 1944. Dear Kitty, you asked me what my hobbies and interests were, so I want to reply. I warn you, however, that there are heaps of them, so don't get a shock. First of all, writing, but that hardly counts as a hobby. Number 2, family trees. I've been searching for family trees of the French, German, Spanish, English, Austrian, Russian, Norwegian, and Dutch royal families in all the newspaper books and pamphlets I can find. I've made great progress with a lot of them, as for a long time already. I've been taking down notes from all the biographies and history books that I read. I even copy out many passages of history. My third hobby, then, is history, on which Daddy has already bought me a lot of books. I can hardly wait for the day that I shall be able to comb through the books in the public library. Number 4 is Greek and Roman mythology. I have various books about this, too. Other hobbies are film stars and family photos. Mad on books and reading. Have a great liking for history of art, poets, and painters. I may go in for music later on. I have a great loathing for algebra, geometry, and figures. I enjoy all the other school subjects, but history above all. Yours, Anne. Tuesday, 11th April, 1944. Dear Kitty, my head throbs. I honestly don't know where to begin. On Friday, Good Friday, we played Monopoly. Saturday afternoon, too. These days pass quickly and uneventfully. On Sunday afternoon, on my invitation, Peter came to my room at 4:30. At 5:15, we went to the front attic, where we remained until 6 o'clock. There was a beautiful Mozart concert on the radio from 6 o'clock until 7:15. I enjoyed it all very much, but especially the Kleine Nachtmusik. I can hardly listen to the room because I'm always so inwardly stirred when I hear lovely music. On Sunday evening, Peter and I went to the front attic together, and in order to sit comfortably, we took with us a few divan cushions that we were able to lay our heads on. We seated ourselves on one packing case. Both the case and the cushions were very narrow, so we sat absolutely squashed together, leaning against other cases. Mushy kept us company, too, so we weren't unchaperoned. Suddenly, at 9:15, Mr. Van Daan whistled and asked if we had one of Dussel's cushions. We both jumped up and went downstairs with cushion, cat, and Van Daan. A lot of trouble arose out of this cushion because Dussel was annoyed that we had one of his cushions, one that he used as a pillow. He was afraid that we might be fleas in it and made a great commotion about his beloved cushion. Peter and I put 2 hard brushes in his bed as a revenge. We had a good laugh over this little interlude. Our fun didn't last long. At 9:30, Peter knocked softly on the door and asked Daddy if he would just help him upstairs over a difficult English sentence. That's that's a blind, I said to Margot. Anyone could see through that one. I was right. They were in the act of breaking into the warehouse. Daddy, Van Daan, Dussel, and Peter were downstairs in a flash. Margot, Mummy, Mrs. Van Daan, and I stayed upstairs and waited. 4 frightened women just have to talk. So talk we did, until we heard a bang downstairs. After all was quiet, the clock struck 10:15. The color had vanished from our faces. We were still quiet, although we were afraid. Where could the men be? What was that bang? Would they be fighting the burglars? 10 o'clock. footsteps on the stairs. Daddy, white and nervous, entered, followed by Mr. Van Daan. "Lights out. Creep upstairs. We expect the police in the house." There was no time to be frightened. The lights went out. I quickly grabbed a jacket, and we were upstairs. "What has happened? Tell us quickly." There was no one to tell us, the men having disappeared downstairs again. Only at 10 past 10 did they reappear. Two kept watch at Peter's open window. The door to the landing was closed, the swinging cupboard shut. We hung a jersey round the night light, and after that, they told us. Peter heard two loud bangs on the landing, ran downstairs, and saw there was a large plank out of the left half of the door. He dashed upstairs, warned the home guard of the family, and the four of them proceeded downstairs. When they entered the warehouse, the burglars were in the act of enlarging the hole. Without further thought, Mr. Van Daan shouted, "Police!" A few hurried steps outside, and the burglars had fled. In order to avoid the hole being noticed by the police, a plank was put against it, but a good hard kick from outside sent it flying to the ground. The men were perplexed at such impudence, and both Van Daan and Peter felt murder welling up within them. Van Daan beat on the ground with a chopper, and all was quiet again. Once more they wanted to put the plank in front of the hole. Disturbance! A married couple outside shone a torch through the opening, lighting up the whole warehouse. "Hell!" muttered one of the men, and now they switched over from their role of police to that of burglars. The four of them sneaked upstairs. Peter quickly opened the doors and windows of the kitchen and private office, flung the telephone onto the floor, and finally the four of them landed behind the swinging cupboard. That was the end of part 1. The married couple with the torch would probably have warned the police. It was Sunday evening, Easter Sunday. No one at the police office on Easter Monday, so none of us could budge until Tuesday morning. Think of it, waiting in such fear for 2 nights and a day. No one had anything to suggest. So we simply sat there in pitch darkness, because Mrs. Van Daan in her fright had unintentionally turned the lamp right out, talked in whispers, and at every creak one heard shh, shh. It turned 10:30, 11, but not a sound. Daddy and Van Daan joined us in turns. Then, 11:15, a bustle and noise downstairs. Everyone's breath was audible. Otherwise, no one moved. Footsteps in the house, in the private office, kitchen, then on our staircase. No one breathed audibly now. Footsteps on our staircase, then a rattling of the swinging cupboard. This moment is indescribable. "Now we are lost," I said, and I could see us all being taken away by the Gestapo that very night. Twice they rattled at the cupboard. Then there was nothing. The footsteps withdrew. We were saved so far. A shiver seemed to pass from one to another. I heard someone's teeth chattering. No one said a word. There was another sound in the house, but a light was burning on our landing, right in front of the cupboard. Could that be because it was a secret cupboard? Perhaps the police had forgotten the light. Would someone come back to put it out? Tongues loosened. There was no one in the house any longer. Perhaps there was someone on guard outside. Next, we did 3 things. We went over again what we supposed had happened. We trembled with fear, and we had to go to the laboratory. The buckets were in the attic, so all we had was Peter's tin waste paper basket. Van Daan went first, then Daddy, but Mummy was too shy to face it, where Margot, Mrs. Van Daan, and I gladly made use of it. Finally, Mummy decided to go do so too. People kept on asking for paper. Fortunately, I had some in my pocket. The tin smelled ghastly. Everything went on in a whisper. We were tired. It was 12 o'clock. Lie down on the floor, then sleep. Margot and I were each given a pillow and 1 blanket. Margot lying just near the store cupboard, and I between the table legs. The smell wasn't quite so bad when one was on the floor, but still Mrs. Van Daan quietly brought some chlorine, a tea towel over the pot, serving as a second expedient. Talk, whispers, fear, stink, flatulation, and always someone on the pot, then tried to go to sleep. However, by 2:30, I was so tired that I knew no more until 3:30. I awoke when Mrs. Van Daan laid her head on my foot. "For heaven's sake, give me something to put on," I asked. I was given something, but don't ask what, a pair of woolen knickers over my pajamas, a red jumper and a black skirt, white oversocks, and a pair of sports stockings full of holes. Then Mrs. Van Daan sat in the chair, and her husband came and lay on my feet. I lay thinking till 3:30, shivering the whole time, which prevented Van Daan from sleeping. I prepared myself the return of the police. Then we'd have to say that we were in hiding. They would either be good Dutch people, then we'd be safe, or NSBers, then we'd have to bribe them. "In that case, destroy the radio," sighed Mrs. Van Daan. "Yes, in the stove," replied her husband. "If they find us, then let them find the radio as well." "Then they will find Anne's diary," added Daddy. "Burn it, then," suggested the most terrified member of the party. This, and when the police rattled the cupboard door, were my worst moments. Not my diary. If my diary goes, I go with it. But luckily, Daddy didn't answer. There is no object in recounting all the conversations that I can still remember. So much was said. I am comforted. Mrs. Van Daan, who was very scared. We talked about escaping and being questioned by the Gestapo, about ringing up and being brave. "We must behave like soldiers, Mrs. Van Daan. If all is up now, then let's go for Queen and country, for freedom, truth, and right, as they always say on the Dutch news from England. The only thing that is really rotten is that we did get a lot of other people into trouble too." Mr. Van Daan changed places again with his wife after an hour, and Daddy came and sat beside me. The men smoked non-stop. Now and then there was a deep sigh, then someone went on the pot and everything began all over again. 4:00, 5:00, 5:30. Then I went and sat with Peter by his window and listened so close together that we could feel each other's bodies quivering. We spoke a word or two now and then, and listened attentively in the room next door. They took down the blackout. They wanted to call up Kufius at 7:00 and get him to send someone around. Then they wrote down everything they wanted to tell Kufius over the phone. The risk that the police on guard at the door or in the warehouse might hear the telephone was very great, but the danger of the police returning was even greater. The points were these: burglars broken in, police have been in the house, as far as the swinging cupboard, but no further. Burglars apparently disturbed forced open the door in the warehouse and escaped through the garden. Main entrance bolted. Praler must have used the second door when he left. The typewriters and adding machines are safe in the black case in the private office. Try to warn Hink and fetch the key from Eli. Then go and look around the office on the pretext of feeding the cat. Everything went according to plan. Kufius was phoned. The typewriters, which he had upstairs, were put in the case. Then he sat around the table again and waited for Hink or the police. Peter had fallen asleep, and Van Daan and I were lying on the floor when we heard loud footsteps downstairs. I got up quietly. "That's Hink." No, it's the police," some of the others said. Someone knocked at the door. Miep whistled. This was too much for Mrs. Van Daan. She turned as white as a sheet and sank limply into a chair. Had the tension lasted 1 minute longer, she would have fainted. Our room was a perfect picture when Miep and Hink entered. The table alone could have been worth photographing. A copy of Cinema and Theater, covered with jam and a remedy for diarrhea. Opened at a page of dancing girls, 2 jam pots, 2 started loaves of bread, a mere comb, matches, ash, cigarettes, tobacco, ashtray, books, a pair of pants, a torch, toilet paper, etc., etc., lay jumbled together in the variegated splendor. Of course, Hank and Mia were greeted with shouts and tears. Hank mended the hole in the door with some planks and soon went off again to inform the police of the burglary. Mia had also found a letter under the warehouse door from the night watchman, Slager, who had noticed the hole and warned the police whom he would also visit. So we had half an hour to tidy ourselves. I've never seen such a change take place in half an hour. Margot and I took the bedclothes downstairs, went to the WC, washed and did our teeth and hair. After that, I tidied the room a bit and went upstairs again. The table there was already cleared, so we ran off some water and made coffee and tea, boiled the milk, and laid the table for lunch. Daddy and Peter emptied the potties and cleaned them with warm water and chlorine. At 11 o'clock, we sat round the table with Hank, who was back by the time, and slowly things began to be more normal and cozy again. Hank's story was as follows. Mr. Slager was asleep, but his wife told Hank that her husband had found the hole in our door when he was doing his tour around the canals, and that he had called a policeman who had gone through the building with him. He would be coming to see Kraler on Tuesday and would tell him more then. At the police station, they knew nothing of the burglary yet, but the policeman had made a note of it at once and would come and look around on Tuesday. On the way back, Hank happened to meet our greengrocer at the corner and told him that the house had been broken into. "I know that," he said quite coldly. "I was passing last evening with my wife and saw the hole in the door. My wife wanted to walk on, but I just had a look in with my torch. Then the thieves cleared at once. To be on the safe side, I don't ring up the police, as with you. I didn't think it was the thing to do. I don't know anything, but I guess a lot." Hank thanked him and went on. "The man obviously guesses that we're here, because he always brings the potatoes during the lunch hour. Such a nice man." It was 1 by the time Hank had gone and we'd finished doing the dishes. We all went for a sleep. I awoke at 2:45 and saw that Mr. Dussel had already disappeared, quite by chance, and with my sleepy eyes I ran into Peter in the bathroom. He had just come down. We arranged to meet downstairs. I tidied myself and went down. "Do you still dare to go to the front attic?" he asked. I nodded, fetched my pillow, and we went up to the attic. It was glorious weather, and soon the sirens were wailing. We stayed where we were. Peter put his arm around my shoulder, and I put mine around his, and so we remained, our arms around each other, quietly waiting until Margot came to fetch us for coffee at 4 o'clock. We finished our bread, drank lemonade, and joked. We were able to get to again. Otherwise, everything went normally. In the evening, I thanked Peter because he was the bravest of us all. None of us has ever been in such danger as that night. God truly protected us. Just think of it, the police in our secret cupboard, the light on right in front of it, and still we remained undiscovered. If the invasion comes, the bombs with it, then it is each man for himself. But in this case, the fear was also for our good, innocent protectors. We are saved. Go on saving us. That is all we can say. This affair has brought quite a number of changes with it. Mr. Dussel is no longer sits downstairs in Kraler's office in the evenings, but in the bathroom instead. Peter goes round the house for a checkup at 8:30 and 9:30. Peter isn't allowed to have his window open at nights anymore. No one is allowed to pull the plug after 9:30. This evening there's a carpenter coming to make the warehouse doors even stronger. Now there are debates going on all the time in the secret annex. Kraler reproached us for our carelessness. Hank, too, said that in a case like that, we must never go downstairs. We have been pointedly reminded that we are in hiding, that we are Jews in chains, chained in one spot, without any rights. but with 1,000 duties. We Jews mustn't show our feelings, must be brave and strong, must accept all inconveniences and not grumble, must do what is within our power and trust in God. Sometime this terrible war will be over. Surely the time will come when we are poor people again, and not just Jews. Who has inflicted this upon us? Who has made us Jews different from all other people? Who has allowed us to suffer so terribly up till now? It is God that has made us as we are, but it will be God, too, who will raise us up again. If we bear all this suffering, and if are still Jews left when it is over, then Jews, instead of being doomed, will be held up as an example. Who knows, it might even be our religion from which the world and all peoples learn good. And for that reason, and that reason only, do we have to suffer now. We can never become just Netherlanders or just English or representatives of any country for that matter. We will always remain Jews, but we want to, too. Be brave. Let us remain aware of our task and not grumble. A solution will come. God will never desert our people. Right through the ages, there have been Jews. There have been Jews through all the ages that they have had to suffer, but it has made them strong too. The weak fall, but the strong will remain and never go under. During the nights, I really felt that I had to die. I waited for the police. I prepared as the soldiers is on the battlefield. I was eager to lay down my life for the country. But now I've been saved again. Now my first wish after the war is that I may become Dutch. I love the Dutch. I love this country. I love the language and want to work here. And even if I have to write to the Queen myself, I will not give up until I have reached my goal. I am becoming still more independent of my parents, young as I am. I face life with more courage than Mummy. My feelings for justice is immovable and truer than hers. I know that what I want. I have a goal, an opinion. I have a religion and love. Let me be myself, and then I am satisfied. I know that I am a woman with inward strength and plenty of courage. If God lets me live, I shall attain more than Mummy ever has done. I shall not remain insignificant. I shall work in the world and for mankind, and now I know that first and foremost I shall require courage and cheerfulness. Yours, Anne. And we're going to end there. So don't forget to take your 5-question quiz at the end of this. Again, this one is Vlad. You will meet his sister and his mother later. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everybody.